stories, different faces. All of you have the same stories. You'd be amazed at how your stories match. In the first session, we talked about blended family issues around child rearing being a problem to a blended family, about finances being a problem to a blended family, and finally the sexual issues that are inherent. And I want to spend most of my time in the second session around the role of the step-parent and really what it is you do. But a couple of things I want to say before that. Some other problems with the blended family are ex-spouses, and I want to visit that for a moment. And part of that is visitation rules. Visitation, period, and following the rules. Now, for a long time, I was afraid of my ex-wife. Now, she's not much to be afraid of. I mean, that didn't come out right, but... I mean, she's not a real threatening kind of person, is what I'm saying. But I was afraid of her because... You know, you get afraid of this thing, I'm going to take you back to court and get more child support. Now, let's just be real, you know, can we talk? And so there are times when I wouldn't do something because I was afraid of her. And I would write her letters and say, you know, in the very beginning, we didn't have every other weekend set and that kind of stuff. We had kind of a loose visitation thing. And I'd write her letters and say, we want the kids this weekend, this weekend, this weekend. If you have any problem with that, let us know. We wouldn't hear anything. And then all of a sudden, we had big Christmas plans, and we go to pick up the kids, and she'd say, you can't have them. And finally, the straw that broke the camel's back happened on a Father's Day. And she called me the day before Father's Day and said, you can't have the kids. And I said, I have a court order that says I have a right to those kids. She said, I don't care what you have. You can't have them. And something went off inside of me. Holy indignation. And I said that day, and it's words that maybe some of you need to learn. What I said that day was, the court set the rules, I didn't. And as long as we have a court agreement, we're going to follow it. You break it, I'll have a contempt citation on your desk so fast, you won't know what made your head spin. Well, the next time she violated that, I called my attorney, who called her attorney, who called her and said, lady, don't you realize you can go to jail for that? You can't do that. You can't make up the rules as you go. And all I'm saying to you is learn boundary setting. Don't be held hostage by an ex-spouse. Whenever you're held hostage, it's somebody saying, if you don't do something, I'm going to. And what I say now with the biggest smile I can find is take your best shot. Because I won't be held a hostage. And I didn't win a lot of things, but I quit living in fear. Because the visitation rules were the visitation rules. Now, our children didn't always understand the visitation rules. Because the visitation rules said we would have them home by 6 o'clock on Sunday evening, and that's in Pueblo. So we have family in Pueblo, and we'd go down and we'd be in the middle of a party. They'd say, Mom doesn't care. We can call Mom. She doesn't care if we stay later. We said, no, the agreement says you have to be home at 6 o'clock. And we'd leave in the middle of the party and take them home. And they didn't understand that. So one day, we went to an attorney. The very best we could find. And we paid this lady for 2 hours of her time to talk to our children, to answer all the questions that they had from a legal perspective. And they asked all kinds of questions. They were probably, I don't know, 8 and 10, maybe by then. And they asked all kinds of questions. We asked them if they wanted us to leave, and they said, no, you stay here with us. They were kind of afraid to be there by themselves. But they asked lots of questions, and we never heard any more about it again. Because we had a set of rules that we were all going to follow. If we wanted to change the rules, we could go back to court and change the rules. See, God never intended us to be here. But now that we're here, let's go by the rules. It's very important when you deal with ex-spouses that you deal firmly and with boundaries and lovingly, just firmly, so that you utilize the rules that have been set down. Now, here's a couple more things you may not like. And that is, that ex-spouse doesn't have the right to come into your house. They're not welcome for dinner anymore. What divorce is the separation of families. It's the tearing apart. It's the amputation. It isn't your best friend anymore who comes by for dinner. That confuses the children. Because now they don't know what's going on. Because desperately they're trying to hang on to something that Mom and Dad might get back together again. He doesn't leave his stuff in your house. He being the ex-husband. And it's now there. He says, I don't have a place to put it. Not my problem. You don't live here anymore. You have to find someplace. Boundaries looks like, and I'm not being harsh, I'm being real. Because some people leave their stuff in your house for the next 20 years. and come and go like it's their house. It's not their house anymore. As a matter of fact, when they come up to pick up the children, whenever you have an exchange, I used to go to the door to pick up the children. I always got into some kind of thing when I got there. And so we finally drove up, and we'd call into the house, just car phone or cell phone or whatever, call into the house and say, we're here. The kids would come out and get in the car. We would drive up, let them out, watch them till they got up there and got into the house. It worked great. We never had to talk. We didn't have those confrontations set up. You don't bring the kids in, the other parent in to see the kid's bedroom. It's not their house. I'm sorry. But that entrance rule has to be followed. They can step inside in inclement weather like anyone would and stand there until the kids come. But they can't go to the refrigerator and get a pop. They don't live there anymore. You have to stop the familiarity. See, and part of this is around who's most important here. Because Lori had some things that I needed to do around my ex-wife that really were uncomfortable for me. One of the things that she asked me to do was, whenever I talked with my ex-wife on the phone, even though she lived in Pueblo and I worked in Pueblo at the time, she would say, I need you not to call her or talk to her from Pueblo. I need you to wait until you get home to talk to her from Colorado Springs so I can hear the conversation. See, I have to ask this question, who's most important here? She sits right there. And if she can't be most important here, we got a problem. I don't worry about hurting somebody else's feelings. I don't worry that I'm being inconvenienced. I don't worry about any of that stuff. I remember one day she got really mad at me because she didn't want me talking to my ex-wife about stuff, you know. So we talked about Girl Scout cookies when I picked up the kids. And dutifully, I reported it. I got nailed. It was awkward, but I can't place anyone else ahead of what she needs. See, no matter how awkward. I asked her to do some things on occasion that's awkward. One time I was jealous of a person that she worked with, and she went to California with him on a business trip. I asked her to do the unthinkable. I asked her to excuse herself right after work and go to her room, not have dinner with him. The normal thing would be just to have dinner in a business setting. That's what she would do, that's what I would do. I asked her not to do that, and not to tell him why, because I didn't want him to know I was jealous. Sometimes we ask our spouses to do some really crazy things, and especially around ex-spouses. See, the person that I hurt can't be her. So my ex-wife feels okay. If anybody gets hurt, my ex-wife gets hurt so that she feels okay. Are you with me? Your comfort isn't important. What your spouse feels, your new spouse, the person you're in covenant with, the person that you became one with, when they hurt, you hurt. When they're uncomfortable, you're uncomfortable. And there's only a question that has to be answered there. What are you willing to do for the person that you love? And there's only one answer to that, and that answer is anything. Don't ever talk to your ex-spouse in private. Very often I hear, well, they talk on the phone over here. I don't know what they're saying. And sometimes they're giggling. It sounds like they're having way too much fun. If your spouse wants to hear the conversation, accommodate it without an attitude. Another problem is an inability to see your children. Visitation denied, or they move out of state. Those are the real hard times. Those are the really difficult times. Do everything in your power to spend as much time with your children as you can. They are your children. You know, the reality is the easy thing for me to have done would have been to give them up. The easy thing would have been just to never see them again. It created too many problems. And I know people who have given their children up because it created too many problems. You can't do that. That's right. Those are your children. Amen. You had those children. They're your children. You can't give them up. You can't stop your ability to feed into their lives. They're your children. I don't care if it's in a blended family. I don't care if you've been married 9 times. They're your children. And it's your job to bring them in and nurture them in the admonition of the Lord and raise them the very best that you can from the distance that you are. And the last set of problems really around blended families that I want to touch are around the children themselves. We don't understand how hard it is for them to move into a new home. And by the way, let me mention something to you. If you moved into her home, see, I moved into Lori's apartment. I sold my house in Pueblo. I moved into Lori's apartment. She went into the closet and kind of went like this, about that far. That's how much clothes space I had. I got 2 drawers in the bedroom. I was in the tall pines. I had lots of room. See, but I felt like a guest in her place. And whenever you move into somebody else's house, the one who moves in feels like a guest. I had someone tell me this week that all of his clothes are out in the hallway on racks. Now tell me you feel at home. Go out in the hallway to get your clothes. He said all of her kids have closets. My clothes are in the hallway. What does that say? So if it's possible, buy another house. Move someplace else where there's not a history, if that's possible. If it's not possible, throw the house upside down. Change bedrooms. You know, that picture doesn't have to be at that place on the wall. You can make some changes. And you should make as many changes as you possibly can. But the kids, if they come into where there's already been an established protocol, they feel like guests. And they'll always feel like guests. And the spouse that came into that home will feel like guests, because what happens in an argument? It's my house. It's time for you to leave. Pack your bags and get out. And you always know that's how it's going to be. You can't fight for who's going to get the house, because it's already decided whose the house is. Move someplace else if you can, so that the children can come into a new setting that looks fresh, so that the power lines aren't drawn quite as distinct as they would be by the ones who were already there. The ones who were already there get misput because you brought all of those people in here. Who are they? I used to have a room by myself. Now I don't have a room by myself anymore. I got 2 more people in here and 3 bunk beds. And they're angry. They're strangers they brought in. You tell me I have to love them? I don't even like them. How can I love them? I don't like what they do. They steal from me. They say I snore at night. What? And another thing you need to be aware of in the state of Colorado, if you don't know this already, and that's around custody changes. You know, many people have the understanding, now if it's in your divorce, it's true, but many people have the understanding that the custodial parent can be changed when a child reaches a certain age and they can choose who they want to go live with. That's not true in Colorado. Because when I got a divorce, I thought kids should be with their mom. I gave her custody. And then my kids wanted to come live with me, and they couldn't come. We couldn't even go to court and get them. Because there's only 3 ways that you can get your children. They've established temporary residence with you, or there's mental or emotional abuse that can be proven. That's the only way they can come. Or with the custodial parent's permission, that they can come. My son ran away one time and came to me, and I had to send him home. One of the hardest things that I ever did. Saying, why, Dad? I had to put that in the Lord's hands. And when he came, he was a mess. When we finally got him, God had to make a mess for us to be able to get him. But it worked out real well. Well, now I want to switch gears. How many step parents do we have here? About half, right? The rest are natural parents. So you know how difficult it is to be a step parent. The other half of you know how difficult it is to be the biological parent, or both, if you happen to be in both roles. And the very first thing that we always get down to is the discipline. How do you handle discipline? Well, the woman has had her children living by herself, and she's fed up with those kids. And she didn't want to deal with them anymore, and along comes White Knight on his horse coming in. He's the savior of the world. She says, I've had it with those kids. They're your job now. No, they're not. No, they're not. Step parent, you are not to involve yourself in the discipline of the children for 12 to 18 months. 12 to 18 months. How would you feel if somebody just came into your house and all of a sudden they're yelling at you what to do? You earned the right to lead. When you have children and they're infants, they grow up with you, and you develop the right to lead over the course of years. You don't walk in and demand with a title the right to lead. And you don't go in and demand to be respected. And I'll say once again that don't misunderstand fear for respect. They present the same way. Look carefully into the eyes of your children and see whether they're fearing you or whether they are respecting you. If you come in heavy-handed, they will fear you. If you come in and learn to lead and develop relationship, even become their advocate, you'll build a friendship with them and you'll earn the right to lead. Ladies, hang on a little while longer while he comes in and maybe even comes in as an advocate of the kids as he begins to build a relationship with her, as she begins to build a relationship. You know what the temptation is? Lori used to come to me and say, tell those kids to do whatever. Wait a minute, I'm not your hatchet person. You know, come to me and we'll talk about what we're going to do, but I'm not going to carry out what you want. We'll go into executive subsystem, and we'll talk about what we're going to do, and then I'll go announce it. That's okay. Because for the first 12 to 18 months, I need to do the announcing. Because she's not getting involved in it. I'm getting involved in it. Now you don't say, when your daddy gets home. So you don't go there either. Or when your mama gets home, she'll take care of you. You can equalize things until they get home. But you're not to step into the heavy-handed discipline role. I had a question asked of me one time, and I thought it was an excellent question, and I want to share it with you, and that is, what if that child comes into our home with an attitude? Do I have the right to tell them they can't come? No, you don't have the right to tell them that because two of you are telling them what to do. And the second thing is, one of the dangers around blended families is that kids are throwaways. If they're your kids, you're stuck. They're right there with you. I'm working with a family right now where it got so severe that the guy's daughter comes into the home sometimes, and the two of them have formed such a club, and the mom, whose natural daughter lives with her all the time, that mom and daughter go and do something, dad and daughter go and do something, and they don't even speak to each other when his daughter comes. And by the time they got to me, he told her, don't even bother coming anymore because it felt so much better. And I said, well, wait a minute. This isn't a family. The two of you have formed the club. The two of you have formed the club. That's not where we're going to go in this family. We've got to reunite this family back together again. He said, she creates so many problems, I'm just going to leave her over there. So what do you do if you have your own child? You just send them somewhere? You deal with the problem. See, blended families give you the right, or give you the forum to abdicate. They give you the forum to say, I don't want that kid. Guess what? They're your kid. And if that child's supposed to come every other weekend, you make that child come every other weekend. One day my daughter, when she was tiny, came out to the car. Her stepdad's name was Jim. And she came out and said, Jim told us we have to come with you this weekend because you got a lawyer. And the lawyer said we have to come. What kind of people are we anyway that allow children to make those kind of decisions? We don't let a child decide whether they're going to come see their parent. Since when did we put children in charge? We decide that it's time for that child to come see us because I have an obligation as a father to pour into my child. And so if the visitation agreement says they come, they come. You don't say no. If they call you and say, I don't want to come, no, we don't do I don't want tos. If you're in the same city and they want to go to a birthday party, you don't leave them home and let them take them to the birthday party. You decide whether they can go to the birthday party. First of all, they don't announce. And second of all, you take them to the birthday party. If they have homework to be done, they don't stay home and do the homework. You have them do homework at your house because they live there. So you create a home for them. Am I making sense? And so as that step-parent, with that umbilical cord that you go out and latch on that child, then you make yourself want that child to come. I don't care if they're hell on wheels when they get there. You're going to have to deal with that. And you know what that child is saying? What that child's really saying is, please, demonstrate to me that you love me. Please demonstrate to me that I'm secure here. My world's been torn upside down. See, children don't understand why parents get divorces. There's a little boy who his dad told him to make his bed and he didn't make it, and his dad told him to make it again the next day and he didn't make it, and the next evening his dad left and never came back. And the little boy carried around that his dad left because he didn't make his bed. See, kids cry desperately to know that you want them in spite of how they act. That umbilical cord goes out and latches and it goes one way. And you say, I want you whether you want to be here or not. My children have said to me, I hate you. And I'm real sorry about that. I don't hate you. They're kids. You can't respond to them as adults. They're kids desperately crying out for you to latch onto them and say, I don't care what happens. I never thought I'd have to live up to it, but I used to tell my kids, you always have a home here. No matter what happens, you can come to live with us. Never in our wildest dreams did we think we would get two teenage kids land on our doorstep. But they needed to know that when the chips were down, they were anchored there. Kids have to know that. You have to tell them that. You have to not only tell them that, you have to prove it. Who's the adult here? You know, sometimes I've watched people where they look like two kids fighting. Where I had a bunch of kids in my office instead of some adults and kids. We're the adults. If we catch some punishment, we can take it. We're adults. We just sidestep it. And then we step back in again. Learn how to set boundaries on your children and all that. I'll get to discipline in a moment. But if you're a step-parent, you've got a hard row to hoe ahead of you. It looks like this. The general public perception is a wicked stepmother and a cruel stepfather. Come ready to love, but meet rejection. We don't even like the term step this and step that. And so we walk along to our kids and we require them to call them mom and dad. It's not their mom and dad. You know, it would have been nice if kids would have called Lori mom, but they have a mom. So they called her Lori, that's fine. They tried to call me Larry a couple times. Testing their wings a little bit. But you can have all kinds of terms. There are people that say called stepdaddy, stepmom. You know, but let's get rid of this evil connotation that we have around step families. We have millions of children that are in step families now. We have hundreds of thousands of step parents. It's not bad anymore. You're called to a role that is almost impossible, but through Christ is doable. And I'm calling you to something that you may not want to do. I'm calling you to something that's a thankless job. I'm calling you to something that doesn't have the biological payoff. I'm calling you to something that may have rejection right in your teeth most of your life. But I'm calling you to reach out to children that are not yours and put an umbilical cord on them and pour into them. Let the love of the Lord pour into them. You know, one of the bad things around getting stepchildren is when you have a baby, you have showers. When's the last time you heard of a shower for a stepchild? You got an 8-year-old, nobody gave you a shower? They sent you sympathy cards. Step-parents assume their new roles in an environment of uncertainty, isolation, and often a sense of shame. They don't want to introduce their kids because they're a different name and somebody's going to ask about that. And then you have all those embarrassing questions. One time I was in some kind of a PTA meeting or something with kids, and it was quiet. I mean, dead quiet. And my daughter looks up at me and says, so everybody could hear it, Dad, why did you get a divorce? But generally, society has in the past treated step-parents as second-hand citizens, and children that are step-children as second-class children. And we can't go there anymore. I think we've moved a long ways toward that. But if you've got any kind of a negative connotation associated with being a step-parent, you were called of God to do that. You're able to pour into a child in a way that nobody else can pour into. I applaud you for stepping into that role, but step into it. Go all the way. First step in becoming a good step-parent is to banish once and for all any lingering feelings that you're a second-rate parent. The choice to create a step family should be a matter of pride rather than one of shame. You're not a nuclear family. Give it up. You're a step family. Take pride in it. The stages of bonding with your stepchild, that's next. Don't get in a hurry. Give up the instant love myth. It isn't going to happen. They're not going to think you're the most wonderful person in the world. Actually, during the dating time, they may think you were. You weren't a threat then. Once you get married, it all changes. You're not the great person anymore, and you've got to earn it now. How do biological parents bond with their children? Slowly. How do you bond with your stepchildren? Slowly. It's not so different. You don't go in and demand to be loved. You don't go in and demand to be respected. It's not going to happen. So how many of you here are stepmothers? Because I'm going to speak to you now. Okay, stepmothers, everybody else you can listen in, but stepmothers, you're wicked. You're an intruder. You could have been a homewrecker. You're a part-time mother and you're daddy's new wife. If you married a widower, you fall short of the saint that you're replacing. If you marry a divorced man, you're the destroyer of a happy home. I don't care if you had nothing to do with it. You'll get the credit for it. And the expectations on you are to be a good replacement. Not a bad replacement, a good replacement. To be a problem solver, to get along with the kid's father, to greet their mother with a smile, be the family bookkeeper, help with the bills left over from the first marriage, learn to receive a little, give a lot. That's the job description. And not get anything back. The reality is, and this is a key, when you step in, see, somehow the children have become daddy's helper. They've become daddy's housekeeper. They've become daddy's right-hand assistant. They've become daddy's everything. And when you come in, suddenly they lost their role. They don't want to lose their role. Now you're coming in competition with the children. Not only for daddy's love, but you're in competition for their role in the family, because as I spoke earlier, there's a parentification that you've done. You've let them come into some of those roles, and now they don't fit those roles anymore. There's a resentment by the children of their father's time with the stepmother when they come to visit. My kids didn't want me to spend any time with Lori. They wanted me to spend time with them. And Lori was equally as determined that I was going to spend time with her. And you know what that feels like? What that feels like is she's got a hold of this arm. That's right. Grab a hold of that one. Pull. That's right. That's what it felt like to me. And and that's exactly what it feels like. And there were days when I would say, what about me? You know, she's sucking me dry, they're sucking me dry. And then the piece comes in, you know, I've got this, it's kind of like my grandkids now. I have a couple grandkids now, and I want to go play with the grandkids. You know, enjoy the grandkids. But after they've been there about 2 hours, what time do you say they're going to pick them up? You know, I wanted to see my kids, and then I was saying, Lori, rescue me. I need some time by myself. But she would pull on me, and they would pull on me. And it was that tug-of-war. What do I do? How do I spend time with them? How do I spend time with her? And at the end of the weekend, I would just be nothing, because I was so drained out from the tug-of-war on both sides. The kids come in competition, and if I don't have it figured out with her first, they're going to dictate what it looks like. That's right. So I work it out with her first in the executive subsystem, how the time's going to be spent, so that whose needs are met first? Her needs are met first. Does that mean that she's going to test my love and say I can't spend any time with them while they're there over the weekend? No, this isn't about testing love. It's about understanding priorities. So that when they came, I spent time with them. But they had to understand they couldn't have all my time. But fortunately, she did a good job at allowing me time with them. But at the same time, also having time with me that was quality. The danger comes when you want to spend time with your kids all the time and it really doesn't matter, and the spouse knows it doesn't matter. See, whenever my kids would come, if I would go totally with my kids, and I hear this all the time, where a father will just go, to heck with you. It doesn't matter, you go, you know, how could you possibly be so cruel as to take all of my time away from my kids and not let me have any time with them? Rather than understanding, all that heart is saying is, I need to be important to you. See, once Lori knew she was important, she granted me much more time. Right. See, the investment has incredible payoff down the road. You're in competition with the natural mom. You can't do anything right. Mom does it this way. Mom walks on the water. Mom walks on the water. Why isn't she here anymore? Forget I said that. Let me give you some advice as a stepmom. Understand that your husband loves his children. Understand that your husband loves his children. To ask me not to love my child is to take away my heart. Be proud of the fact that your husband loves his children. Set some boundaries around how he plays that love out, but be proud of the fact that he loves his children. There are too many fathers who don't love their children, and they discard them. Second is give him some time with his children alone. It's okay. Not to the exclusion of you, not to the exclusion of your importance to him, but give him some time with his children. His father's heart needs that. Number 3 is rescue him when he cries for it. Lori was so good about taking the kids and setting up on the counter and letting them get stuff everywhere while they cooked with her. I could no more have done that than the Man in the Moon. She was so good to sometimes just see the eyeballs spinning and say, kids, come on, let's go somewhere. And give me some time alone. Number 4 is don't complain about what he spends on his kids if it's appropriate. It's okay to spend some money. Let me get inside where you live. Yes, I paid $600 child support at that time. That all went out in a check. But when my kids came, sometimes I just wanted to buy them something. It didn't matter that I'd already paid for their coats. Sometimes I just wanted to buy a coat. Some of the greatest times I've had with my daughter is going dress shopping with her. And if she picked 2, I didn't make her choose. We got them both. I like to dress shop with my daughter. I still like to dress shop with my daughter. I bought her a little blue dress when she was tiny at a garage sale for $2. She wore that thing till it was like a Linus blanket. See, don't go there. Don't get so factually driven that you lose sight of the heart. Don't get so cognitively driven. I talked to a couple just recently where the guy says just something as simple as this. There was an upstairs office that they had, and there were a couple of chairs in the office. And it was a home office, and the guy had given his wife one of the chairs, so the 2 nicest chairs, office chairs, were upstairs. Well, the kids had a computer downstairs, had an old ratty chair. So they went upstairs and got that chair when that had been given to her. Well, what does the husband say when she complains? Logic mind. Well, I'm never up here. It's a good chair. Whenever you're here, I'm not here anyway. We can both have just one chair. It makes more sense to have that chair downstairs where it's going to get used. He thought it was about chairs. It was about being important. See, don't get that logic in there. One guy was on his way home one night, and his wife called and asked him to get her a Taco Bell taco. And he got home and he forgot it, and he was a cook, so he said about cooking dinner for her. And she was angry at him. He thought it was about tacos. It was about being important enough to remember. See, whenever you begin to deal in these issues, get that logic brain out of there. Respond to the heart of the father who says, I just want to do something for my child. I just want to love them that way. Don't say we paid yep amount of child support. All you are is just, you know what nagging is? It's like being nibbled to death by a duck. And that's all that is. And it goes the other way too. Guys, if she wants to do something for her children, it's a parent's love that's flowing out. Don't sit and tick off the cash register in your mind. It's love being poured out. You can't buy love, but sometimes you just want to do something for your kids that isn't bound up in that check that you write every month. Don't go there. You will have missed one of the most important pieces of emotional exchange that can come to you if you go there. And the last thing is don't compete with their mom. You're not going to win. You're not mom. You're never going to be mom. You can walk alongside mom, but you're never going to be mom. So some other tips for a stepmother, some of these that you might want to, some of you are already there and you should have done it. Some of you have this yet to look at. Investigate your new husband-to-be. See, if he never sees his kids, he won't see them after you get married. If he's not interested in them before you get married, he won't be interested in them after you get married. And if it's important to you as a spiritual leader that he love his children, if he doesn't love them before, he won't love them after. Remember who the adult is. Man, it's so easy for stepmoms and kids to get into it, like two little kids. Don't forget. Be impartial, but be united with the husband. Children need security. Kids have had their worlds torn apart. You don't understand what a kid looks at. You know, a kid has had all of a sudden things, and usually we don't tell them ahead of time. So all of a sudden an announcement's made, Mom and Dad are getting a divorce. And their world is thrown upside down. You knew it was coming. You got the divorce. Then all of a sudden their world is thrown upside down. And guess what they think? Now Lori and I get married. And if we just raise our voices to each other, they remember raised voices. And you know what raised voices mean to them? I'm going to be disconnected again. I'm going to be thrown out into chaos again. And we had to sit down with the kids and say, this is normal. Our raised voices aren't much. We don't yell at each other. But we said, it's really okay. We're just working out our differences. You're safe. It's all right. We're not going anywhere. We're not going to get a divorce. You're okay. Just know that if we're getting into a discussion, we're not going to hide it from you, but we're going to work it out so you'll know that conflict in a marriage is okay. But the moment they start to hear conflict, they're torn into chaos. You have to reassure them that things are going to be all right and you're still going to be there. Talk things over that concern the children. Support each other in front of the children. Critical, critical, critical. Support each other in front of the children. One of the stories I'll tell you is kids had laser tag. Remember when we had those? You know, had the little hat that you wore that you shot into and things, and bells went off or something, and you were shot. Wouldn't work these days, but it worked back then. And the kids quit using them, and they had them stored in the closet in a trash bag. And so we have some younger nephews, and Lori gathered all that stuff up, and she's going to bring it down and give it to the nephews. And we're in Pueblo driving, and she said something about she brought all the laser tags. And up came from the back seat, how dare you? Those are ours. Well, you never use them. Doesn't matter. It's ours. You didn't ask if we could do that. They're ours, and don't you dare do yap, 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 all of that stuff. Well, frankly, I agreed with them. I didn't think she had the right to go in there and take their stuff without asking them and go give it away to somebody else. But did I say it then? No. And there are times when she had to do the same thing. If she disagreed with what I was doing, she had to chew up the inside of her mouth in order to keep from saying it, so that we support each other in front of the children. And we carry a united front so they don't know who decided anything. Let the children know lovingly that you're there to stay. I've covered that. Find time alone with your husband. Ladies, take time away from your children to be with your husband. I'm working with clients right now who's a lady who has daughters who come in from Atlanta and spend time with her. And her temptation is to just totally be consumed by them. And he's sitting over here for the whole time that they're there. Take time with your husband. Take time to nurture that peace between the two of you. When the kids are long gone, you're left. Nurture that, so that when they're gone, there is something left. If it's economically possible, move. I said that already. Run the household as you see fit. Establish your position in the family. You are now the queen mother of this household. It doesn't matter how other mom did it. It doesn't matter how dad did it. You've got to establish yourself, not in orneriness, but with boundaries. Lori used to come home sometimes from work when she was climbing the corporate ladder and a manager and all of that. She'd come in and I'd have to say, I'm neither your child nor your employee. They establish yourself. You don't have to get put in somebody else's rut. You establish yourself in that new home. Don't criticize a former wife. You'll lose. Understand that the in-laws may like the ex-wife and wish she was still around. Tread carefully. They'll learn to love you. And the final problem is, ladies, in advice, is the problem child. And let me pause here for a moment. I had one of those. Prodigal children are very difficult to handle, and especially if they're a step-parent. My son came to us from the psych ward of a hospital. He had run away from home, refused to go back, finally showed up for school as a sophomore in high school. He had showed up for school. Was he a sophomore? Yeah, I think he was. Shown up for school. They picked him up as a runaway. They took him to the hospital. And he refused to go home, so they put him on the psych ward. I went to get him, and I couldn't find him. It was my weekend. I finally found a friend of his dad who said that he thought he was at one of the hospitals. I called the hospital. They wouldn't tell me anything because I was not the custodial parent. I said I have a right to him this weekend because he's mine from 6 o'clock Friday to 6 o'clock Sunday. They said, you have to go back to Denver and get a court order to show us, and we drove back to Denver to get a court order. And then they wouldn't tell me if he was there or not. I said, please, I'm desperate. I got to find my son. And they finally said, I think he might be at the other hospital in town. I called them. They wouldn't tell me. I finally got somebody who would tell me just, yes, he's here. And that I did battle to go find him. And then they sent him home, and I thought, God, what are you trying to do here? And he messed up 2 nights later, and they sent him back, and my ex-wife said, you can have him. So he came as a prodigal. I love my son. You've heard me say that. He's great now. We had a wonderful conversation today. And almost every other day from Sicily, his phone bill is going to be out the wazoo. But the point is, you're going to get some difficult children. Lori walked right into a difficult problem child. And it'd be real easy for her to say, he's your problem. We had a young man living with us, and one night I went outside. They thought we were in bed, and I went outside to take something to the neighbors, and they're both walking in with a quart of beer. We found all kinds of things in our son's room. There were nights I had to send him out into the night. See, and what you have to do is you don't abdicate. See, I did it wrong. When that group surrounded me at the couples retreat telling me how to parent my son, they were right. Because what they said to me was I had to put boundaries around him, and those of you who are the natural parent, you won't see it. The step-parent will see it. Lori saw it, and she tried to tell me. And you know, the truth is, if she would have tried to have forced me, stepmothers, if she would have tried to have forced me, I would have resented her to no end. The wisest move Lori ever made was to come to me and say, you're the spiritual leader in our family, and I'm going to trust what you do. Did I do it wrong? Yeah. For a long time, I did it wrong. Because I was so glad to have him. I didn't want him mad at me. I wanted him to like me. So I did everything for him. I bailed him out of everything. He never had to suffer one consequence because I bailed him out. And finally, that was in September when they surrounded me at the couples retreat. And by December, he went to Florida. He said, well, I'm going to go to Florida. Wouldn't work. Very irresponsible. He said, I'm going to go to Florida. I have a friend down there. I'm going to live with my friend. And so I said, okay, I'll drive you down. I spent $1,300 getting him down there. I drove him down. We had a great time. He lived with his friend. I gave him some money to get going until he could get a job. And that was Thursday. A week from that Sunday, I called down, and his roommate answered and said, let me speak to Jared. He said, he's not here. I said, where is he? He said, he's on a plane to there. Where's there? Denver. So I had one day heads up. I'm sitting in my office here at the church. I walk out to the front of the office, and here comes my son down the hallway. Dad, I'm back. Dad, can I drive the Datsun? See, by now, I've come some distance. By now, I'm able to say, if you're going to drink, you can't spend the night in our house. By now, I'm able to say, if you don't work, you can't stay here. There were nights when he called at 10 o'clock at night. We were in the car coming home from Denver Center for Performing Arts. And he said, Dad, can I spend the night? I said, did you work today? He said, no. I said, you know the rules. But Dad, I just want a place to sleep. I won't use any food. I won't use any water. Dad, can I just have a place to sleep? And I had to say, no. You know the rules yesterday, today, next week. When he came walking down and said, Dad, I'm back. Can I use the Datsun? It was an extra car. No, you can't. You have a car. It's in Florida, remember? Dad, can I borrow some money? No, you had money. His girlfriend had sent him a one-way ticket to come back. Say, Dad, can I live with you? No, you can't. You had a place to live. That's when it gets tough. Our son lived in Denny's for 2 weeks. Denny's restaurant for 2 weeks. He came here without a coat. He didn't have money to buy another one. He had plenty. He just didn't bring it. The Bible says, whatsoever a man soweth, that shall he also reap. And in step families, stepmothers, you'll see it quicker. Or vice versa. Stepfathers, or natural parent fathers, you want so much for your kids to love you, you can't put boundaries and consequences in place. It took me a while to get there, but stepmothers, Lori gave me the latitude to learn. She encouraged me. She told me what she saw. For a long time, she put me in a no-win, and I felt like that guy on the cross again, being pulled. And she took that off of me when she said, I'm going to trust you. to be the spiritual leader in our family and to learn, and within 3 months I was there. But if she hadn't have given me the time to come, I would have resented her. I would have done it, but I would have, because I would have made her first, but I would have resented it. Be careful how you test someone's love. Be careful. Prodigal children are prevalent in blended families because they've been through so much, and they're crying out desperately to be loved regardless. They want you to love them in spite of their behavior, and it is hard for a stepmother to love a child that's a prodigal. It's easy to love the ones that are compliant. It's easy to love the ones who do everything that you ask them to do. It's easy to love the ones that say, yes, stepdaddy, yes, stepmother, whatever you want, I'll do it. It's hard for those that act out. I can't turn him loose. He's mine. She can. He's not hers. She never told me one time, go do it yourself. I'm out of here. Although I'm sure she was tempted at various times. The hard part is when you get your feet down on the rubber of the road and you got to play this thing out. See, I don't care what you think. I love my son. And I had to get there. And Lori doesn't care what you think. She loves her son. She had to get there. It's every much as much her son now as it is my son. We love him, I think, the same. Don't tell me you can't love that stepchild. Stepmom, don't tell me you need to remove yourself. Don't tell me that when his kids come, I'm just going to let them do their thing. Don't do it. Don't do it. You're not a nuclear family. Don't play like you're one. But you can be a step family that will pour into the lives of difficult children. Stepmoms come alongside the natural parent. Stepdads come alongside the natural parent. It goes both ways. Don't say when your kids come, it's just your kids. I don't like your kids. Because I don't like your kids, I'm not going to have anything to do with your kids. They don't respect me. They disrespect me at every turn. I've given them everything. They've given me nothing. I'm not going to do anything for them. Don't go there. Because the desperate cry of their mom is, if you love me, you'll love them. They're part of me. They came as a package. All right, stepdads. I don't have long. A lot of the same stuff is the same. Be a good male model. Be a good male role model. There we go. Whoa. But don't overstep the boundaries. Mom, you'll be in charge of whether they listen to him or not. Because if you respect him, they will. If you disrespect him, so will they. You'll be the role model. If you think he's weak, if you castrate him, if you cut him off at the knees, if you undermine his authority, so will they. They will follow what you do. Be careful. How you treat him is how they will treat him. Develop good relations with your wife and strive to meet her needs. She wants love, financial security, and concern for her children. When the kid's father arrives to pick him up, be nice. If he comes to the door, be nice. When the in-laws come to visit, don't overdo the father routine. They can see through you. Just be who you are. The problem is, and I've covered some of this, is that they feel like a visitor in her house. Everything in the house feels like her things. And there's things like inside stories. Be careful about inside stories. Everybody laughs and he's kind of sitting there, what are you laughing about? I don't know the history here. Include him. If you tell an inside story, clue him in on what the inside story is about. Old photographs and movies to deal with. What do you do with the old pictures? Don't come in. Guys, you're worse at it than the women are. Don't come in and say, throw away all those old pictures. Play like he never existed. I have my ex-wife and my wedding pictures. Do they have particular significance? No, except that was a part of my life. I did marry her. That's a pictorial record of that. I had 13 years with her. That's a pictorial record of that. I can't play like those 13 years didn't exist. I can't play like my kids weren't born into that. I can't play like there aren't pictures with my children and their mother. I can't play like that. Guys, don't demand that stuff just to test their love, because at some point there will be a pictorial record of your life ladies, that you won't ever be able to get back. And guys, you'll be sorry you ever ask it of them. Don't test love in that way. Here's some tips for the stepfather. Find out what kind of mom she is before you become the stepfather. Most of you are already there. Find out how she reacts when you're with her children. Check to see what happened in the first marriage. Yeah, that's kind of interesting. If the children's father was right, don't expect her to change for you. Be realistic. Don't expect the children to change because you're there. You're the grown-up. Again, don't say, I'm just waiting for her kids to come around. You bring leadership to it. Behave like an adult. Remain impartial yet united with your wife. Learn from your wife's expertise. She's been parenting these people for a long time. Don't march in the hero. I know how to do this. I know a guy one time who, he was coming in like a white knight into the marriage. You know, these people they had kind of a messy house. It was a mom and two children, and they kind of left things laying around, and they left the lights on all the time, and nobody ever turned the lights out, and it was kind of disorganized, and he was going to come in and organize everybody. He missed one piece. They didn't want to be organized. He's not there anymore. When you come in not as the knight in shining armor. Come in to learn what works with these kids. She's already had a history with them. Listen to her. You don't have all the answers. You don't have to be macho. What worked with your kids may not work with her kids. Learn from her. She'll teach you some things, and then you can step into that role. Well, where do I go? Advice for let me just go to here. The stepfather and stepchildren. Stepfather has to decide if he wants a close relationship with young children or merely a convenient one. See, when your kids come to live with you when they're small, it's pretty easy. They're more pliable. It's when they come as teenagers and look at you and say, you're not the boss and I don't have to do anything with you. I got 2 years to be out of here. I'm going to wait till I get out of here and I don't have to do a thing you tell me in the meantime. Difficult children. Prodigals. It's much more difficult when you inherit teenagers because you haven't had a chance to raise them up. But you have to decide what kind of relationship you're going to have, stepdads. What kind of relationship do you want to have with these children? And I hope it's the same one I talked about from the stepmom, where you're going to reach out and it doesn't matter what they do. It doesn't matter how much you've provided. It doesn't matter how much you've contributed. It doesn't matter what you poured into their life. It doesn't matter. You're going to keep pouring and pouring. Not that you don't set boundaries. Of course you'll set boundaries and consequences. That's what you do that's healthy. But you pour into their lives. Decide up front. Ladies, have the conversation with him. What role does he want to play? What is he going to be in the way of a spiritual leader? What is he going to be in the way of a friend? What is he going to be in the way of someone who spends time with him? What is he going to be in the way of attaching himself to them, to do things with them, to love them, to care for them, out of a heart that maybe doesn't even want to? What's he going to do when they say, you're not my dad? Is he going to get wounded and run? Or is he going to say, no, I'm not, but I'm going to get as close to it as I can be. And I'll be there for you. Take it to the bank. The last suggestions I'll leave with you is a stepfather's only option is patience. That's all. Don't push the real father out of the picture or try to take his place. He's been around too long for you to be able to take his place, even if he's a bum. Take pride in becoming a guide. Create emotional safety and keep your confidences with them private. If they tell you something in private, keep it. Keep your promises to them. Reveal your own fears and strengths. Go to them, guys, and say, I'm so afraid. I've never been a stepdad before. I don't know how to do this. You've never been a stepchild before. You don't know how to do this. Neither one of us know how to do this. We'll figure it out together. And we'll learn how to love each other. See, guys, we want to be macho. We don't want to be weak and afraid. You've got an awesome task ahead of you. It's been my privilege to be able to speak to you tonight, to pour some things into your heart. I hope that you can take these and integrate it into your life. I hope that somehow God has sparked something into your heart so that you walk away changed. So you won't get a different product unless you do something different. Definition of crazy is figure out what doesn't work and continue to do it. Got to do something different to get a different outcome. And so if you want a different outcome, you're going to have to do something different. Guys, you're going to have to do something different. Ladies, you're going to have to do something different. Join hands with somebody, will you? Let's pray. I heard a guy say yesterday the reason why I have people join hands is because when I have my eyes closed, they won't leave. For us, it's just a sign of intimacy. Lord Jesus, thank you for this time. Father, touch every step-parent. Touch every natural parent. Touch every blended family. Father, put the blood of Jesus around them. Protect them, Lord. Father, give them wisdom beyond what they're capable. Father, bring peace in these homes. Father, bring closeness of the parents, Lord. They're one, in covenant with each other, to see out the distance, to provide safety in the home for these kids. A haven, Lord, for them for the rest of their lives. Father, touch each person that's here at the point of their need. In Jesus' name, amen. God bless you.